love signs and t-shirts with thought-provoking or witty quotes. One of my favorites growing up was from Arthur C. Clarke. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. I often dreamed what a Neolithic man might think if they were miraculously transported into our modern world. A person from an age where horses were not yet domesticated could have only traveled as fast as they could run. Riding in a car would have been a dizzying experience. A plane flying low overhead would have been terrifying. A caveman walking through an average house would see us to be godlike, with powers to control the elements, summoning fire on command at the stove, making it rain in the shower, or creating a cold wind just by turning on the air conditioner. I used to think about things like this when I was just a kid, before most of the population carried a magic box in their pocket that allowed them instant access to the entire sum of human knowledge through that all-powerful deity known as Google. I also find alternative interpretations of old texts fascinating. For example, from the Bible, 2 Kings 2:11, "And it came to pass, as they still went on and talked, that behold, there appeared a chariot of fire, and horses of fire, and parted them both asunder. And Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven." For someone of the technological age at the time the Bible was written, a chariot of fire with horses of fire, it could have been something as commonplace to us today as a car and a couple motorcycles, maybe a rocket ship. They had no concept of light bulbs. Headlights would seem like magical spheres of fire. Could you imagine the reaction from a person that had never seen any machine more complicated than a wheelbarrow if a couple of Harleys with straight pipes came thundering down the path? "And Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven." It could be that God used to be a little more of a showman than he is today. Or maybe Elijah was abducted by someone flying a helicopter. Reinterpreting ancient texts are proof to many ufologists that Earth has been visited by extraterrestrial beings all throughout history. Even Cleopatra had a magical chariot. I never had a magical chariot, but I did own a magic rain hat at the time. I did not grow up in the Neolithic age, and I've been becoming more and more aware that I come from a time much different than most of my coworkers. I will say something completely normal like, "I'll see you tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat station." And my coworkers look at me like I'm exhibiting symptoms of early onset Alzheimer's. I grew up reading my grandfather's magazines, things like Popular Mechanics, Popular Science, and Mechanics Illustrated. I've always been curious about how things worked, and I was taught that a well-rounded man was supposed to have a basic understanding of how most everything in his environment worked. It's not like you were supposed to be an expert and able to fix a refrigerator when it broke, but you were supposed to understand the principles of how it made things cold using electricity. I've done pretty well. I have a reasonable understanding how everything works, even if I'm far from an expert in many areas. I remember quite vividly the first time I met a fellow adult that did not adhere to the idea that a person should have a basic understanding of how things worked. It was about 20 years or more ago when I was working for a freight company loading trucks. I was training a new hand in how to properly use the forklift. In no time, he was off and working on his own. Our forklifts ran on propane instead of gasoline. The new employee came to me and told me that his forklift had run out of fuel. Asked if I would show him how to change the tank. No problem. When I went to remove the supposedly empty propane tank, I noticed it felt heavier than it should. I changed it anyways. The new guy jumped back on the forklift, turned the key, and it just went click. The forklift didn't turn over. It just made a single click, that was all. The new hire looked at me and said, "You must have put an empty tank on it because it's still out of gas." "No, it's either got a dead battery or the starter's messed up." I swear some people probably start changing light bulbs when the power goes out in a thunderstorm. One of my customers, I saw the other day was wearing a t-shirt that made an indelible impression into the synapses of my brain. It read, "I can explain it to you, but I can't understand it for you." I get it, I really do. We live in a very technologically advanced world, and it's only likely to get worse, not better. There are new things that we are expected to use and understand coming out regularly. Just take television shows, for example. As a kid, I could only watch something when it was on television, but I had to be there at the exact time it aired. There was no second chance, no way to record it. I had to have the TV tuned to the right channel, by getting out of the chair, walking across the room to the television, and turning a knob. Then I had to pray that the idiot president wouldn't preempt my show for some type of knowing public announcement. I had only one chance to see a new episode. Just one single opportunity. That was it. I remember the thrill when we got our first video cassette recorder. Set the timer and your show was recorded on a tape. You could watch it anytime. Even more than once if you wanted. Tapes are gone now. We have DVDs or we pick an episode on Netflix. Set the DVR from the cable company or just use on demand. Feel like sticking it to the man? There are hundreds of sites to watch shows for free on the internet. We used to have a single technology for allowing us to watch a television show. Radio waves from a tower, decoded by that giant piece of heavy furniture in the living room. Let's just list a couple ways that we could get that same show now. Many are similar technologies, but not really identical. We could do it old school, with an antenna and television. The signals are digital instead of analog, but that's pretty much the same way your grandfather used to watch television. Well, my grandfather at least. There are grandfathers around these days that grew up with cable TV and remotes. Next is a DVD, which is an encoded optical disc. We need a device to shoot a laser at the spinning disc and send the signal over something like an HDMI cable to our television. And while televisions are still large, it's now usually reasonably light, and in many instances, they hang on the wall. Next is through a service like Netflix, which sends the signal over the internet. How do we get the internet? Could be through a cable, could be free from Wi-Fi signal, or it could be delivered through another type of radio signal from a cell phone provider. A DVR? Well, that's similar to a DVD in that the show is stored on a spinning disc, but the DVR uses magnets to encode the information instead of a laser. We can use a BitTorrent program to copy the show from countless places on the internet. Our options of where the show is displayed have changed too. A cell phone, a laptop, tablet, or maybe in one of those newfangled virtual reality headsets. Is it any wonder many people have a hard time keeping up? As a salesman in the electronics department, it's frustrating. You can't tell by looking at someone if they know much about the items they're trying to buy or not. Sometimes they ask for something and you know right away. I had a customer ask for a charger that needed to have a plug the same size as a headphone jack. I remember those, but it's been many years since I've seen any. I asked her what she needed it for, and I was expecting to hear about some type of old electronic device. She explained, "I messed up the hole where my charger plugs into my cell phone, so I want to charge it through the headphone jack." I tried to explain that wouldn't work and why, but the lady had no faith in the intelligence of an older man working somewhat of an entry-level job at a large retailer. She was totally convinced it could be done. I finally told her she would need to order such a cable on the internet because we didn't stock them in the store. We sell Roku boxes. Many new televisions are now labeled as smart TVs, and they have the capability to access apps like Netflix or YouTube directly from the internet built in. Other televisions that don't come with that ability can display the same stuff with a Roku streaming player. I've found through experience that it's a good idea to mention it to any customer that is buying a Roku device that they need to have Wi-Fi internet service in order to use it. A shocking number are not aware that internet access is required in order to use a Roku streaming device. It's frustrating to me. I say something like, "I just want to make sure you understand a Roku needs to be hooked up to the internet over Wi-Fi in order to work." Many people treat me like I'm some sort of moron because, in their mind, everyone already knows that. More people than you would believe are shocked to learn that they need to have internet service before they can access Netflix. A few don't believe me that they need internet access because They heard that all they needed was Roku, and they could get thousands of shows if they would just buy Roku. I must be crazy. It could drive one to drink. Ah, more wine. There are almost countless types of sockets on electronic equipment. USB, micro USB, USB-C, HDMI, mini HDMI, micro HDMI, VGA, DVI, DisplayPort, mini DisplayPort, Lightning, Ethernet, coaxial, RCA. The list is almost endless. There are many adapters and converters available to change one type of plug to another. This has led some people to believe that they can do absolutely anything they desire if they just had the correct adapter. It is often difficult to get people to understand that there is more to it than just the shape of the plug. Often individuals that had cell phones in the past, stop using them for whatever reason, decide they want to reactivate their old phones. Yes, I understand you have an old cell phone. Yes, I understand that you have taken great care of your 20-year-old Motorola StarTrack and it still turns on. But we need to check to see if it can be reactivated. Most cell companies have updated their networks and some older phones no longer work. Finding that some cell phones are obsolete is shocking to people. Sometimes they get angry. There are a myriad of options available when it comes to purchasing prepaid cell phones and cell phone plans. This leads to daily frustrations. It seems simple. Verizon is a cell phone company. AT&T is a cell phone company. They both have some of the exact models of phones. Someone is mad at Verizon and decides to switch to AT&T. I apparently am an agent of an evil corporation perpetrating a great scam on the American public when I tell them that their Verizon phone working on the CDMA network will not work on AT&T's GSM network and they need to purchase another phone. I used to dream what it would be like for a Neolithic man to be transported into our modern world. Now I realize it's already happened. The cavemen among us just accept the magic as normal and get angry when it doesn't work like they think it should.